Hello, everyone, and welcome to Office Hours, where we answer your tech and media production questions every single day. Cindy Drozda in Erie, Colorado is our reader today. Cindy, what's our first question?
First one today is from Alexander Knight in Port Coquitlam, BC. Has anyone tested speech-to-text transcription on Davinci Resolve Studio 19.1.3? It's broken for me. After processing the timeline audio, the transcription window that normally has the text and speaker info is blank.
Alex Lindsay's going to help you out, Alex.
I haven't done it because generally I've been using third-party apps to do all the transcription stuff that I've needed to do. I haven't done much inside of these apps. I know that they're working towards it, but I'm not sure that I've been sold that they're better than the ones that will do it on their own.
And Ronnie Hofsoy wants to weigh in. Ronnie?
We have used it on the previous versions with pretty good results. It's working as it should. So I think I would suggest that you just roll back one version and see if that fixes the problem.
And Chris Fenwick.
My question would be, you said after processing. So quite often, a process that you run on a piece of media is attached to that piece of media. If you, depending on what processing you're doing, if you processed the media, it may now be considered a different piece of media in the world of black magic, and therefore the transcription that was done on the piece of media is now detached from that media. So that could be the problem. It really depends on how those connections are made in the back end.
Let's go to our next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, Triton Audio has an inline barrel compressor for low output dynamic mics. When would you probably use it in comparison with a conventional compressor where you have more control?
Courtney Gooden, start us off.
Well, if you don't, if you're trying to keep your setup simple, this is what we're talking about. Triton has this barrel type connector. And rather than just an FET preamp in there, which is what the FET head is or the cloud lifter is, this one has added a little optoelectronic field effect transistor in there so that it uses the current from the voltage output, and it goes through. You notice you have this little dial here, and you can dial it to less and more. That's the only control you have over it. Just it's basically a one-knob compressor. So you don't have a lot of control over it. So I haven't heard it yet, but, I've got a couple of mixers here with one-knob compressor controls, and they work adequately well. I haven't heard this one, but being that it's an optoelectronic, an LED controlling a photo transistor in there, it wouldn't interfere with the sound too much, causing any hum or buzz or anything like that. But seems good. I don't know. Did they copy their logo from Neumann? Are they?
I know it looked like a Neumann logo. You're like,
I think Neumann's got.
Do you do Neumann often? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Alex?
Yeah, I can see, so without any compression added, it boosts the signal by 25 dB. So it's really, they're kind of selling it towards the idea that you could boost your SM7B. I mean, they even say it, I think, in the release. I think that, like the cloud lifter, it's the kind of thing that you might throw in your bag. And in a worst case scenario, you're going into a cheaper mixer, doesn't have enough headroom to grab onto the mic. You pop this in and it works. But that's the only place I would see ever using it is as a last resort. It'd be in the PACE, primary, alternate, contingency, emergency. This would be the emergency place that I would put it. So it's not better than, it could be better than nothing, but not a lot.
Chris Fenwick wants to weigh in.
So what you're saying is it's a fix to a problem. It's not a solve once and for all problem.
Yeah, fixing the problem before it's a problem is always preferable in every chain that we've ever been a part of. Next question.
From Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas. What do you think of the graphics package for the PBS News Hour, and how does it compare to the other networks, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, MSNBC, etc.?
And Courtney Gooden's going to start us off here. Courtney? I don't know about the graphics package. Maybe you're talking about the graphics set, or maybe the graphics package. This is their new setup for the PBS Evening News Hour. So they got, this desk in the background. I guess they could put a person over there, but a dual anchor. And I tell you, a lot of the news, network newses have gone to this dual anchor setup. In fact, CBS, let me see if I can find that here. I want to talk about ABC too, but here's CBS's new New York studio. They just built this brand new studio in New York. And what looks like a wall with a couple of screens on it, hanging on it, is actually one giant LED screen here, another giant LED screen over here, and another giant LED screen for the floor. This is all an LED screen. So they're surrounded, they're boxed in. There's also one on the left side. So they're boxed in on 3 sides and the bottom 4 sides with giant LED screens, and they've gone to the dual anchor setup. So, they're all kind of moving in that direction to all LED walls because they can make that floor look like a wooden floor behind them, although it's just an LED screen. The one thing I want to complain about is, it drives me nuts every night, is ABC's. ABC's news desk has this LED wall behind them. And I tried to find an example.
It is the worst. I'm sorry.
Are back here. Are they absolute worst? There, you can see all kinds of stair stepping. It looks like it's 320 by 280.
Oh, and it's just that they haven't updated it.
They don't fix this.
They haven't updated it. It's ABC News, and they haven't updated that for so long.
That's Disney. They have all the money in the world.
Well, I've actually sat when that one's been recorded. That they don't record them. It's not live. Obviously, I think they run it about 5:30 or something like that. Yeah, and before the 7 o'clock broadcast, and it's fascinating to watch because there's this little room that is got probably 20 people in it. And you've got 2 people sitting in there talking about being heavy or light, because they're constantly managing the time. So based on whatever happened, they're like, oh, we're 20 seconds early, we're 20 seconds light or 20 seconds heavy. Got to figure out what we're going to put in there. And it could be a graphic, it could be whatever. And there's so much work done. And then they have this, I was left with was they have this set that is just, I feel like they should have upgraded it like 5 years ago, but it has this very dark feel to it. It's very dark. It is, the LED wall is last generation. And I feel like there's going to be some point where they update it and it'll look amazing. But man, it is long in the tooth. Yeah.
Chris Fenwick, we kind of skipped you.
No, you didn't skip me. I'm shocked that anybody even watches that news. But Alex, I wanted to ask you, and I know we're going to talk a little bit about the Super Bowl, but in terms of graphics, when I walked through the room and they were watching the Super Bowl, I thought the lower thirds and all the scores and stuff for the Super Bowl, it reminded me of something like from the late 80s. What did you think of that, Alex?
It reminded me of like Sesame Street. Like, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't even late 80s. I mean, late 80s, like late 80s didn't have any design at all, but it was, pretty painful for me. Like, I kept on thinking this is going to grow on me. And it just never did. It was just like, nope. And here's the hard part is if you're watching football, I know you don't watch football, but if you watch football, you're probably going to see that all next year. Because usually what happens at Super Bowl is it's the design that they're going to use for the next football. They're going to use that design until the next time they do the Super Bowl, which is like 2026 or 28 or whatever it is, or 29, I think. Anyway, so that means that we're, that's what you're going to see when you watch Fox. And I find it fascinating because Fox was really the first company to really spend a bunch of money on their graphics. So in the 90s, they're the ones that invested in doing all these cool graphics and everything else. And I get that they decided to go back to some kind of retro look, but I don't think it works. As a thought process, I am going to take it and just round all the corners and see if it makes it better. Just like a little, not like you didn't do anything.
A word of advice: if you're ever working and doing graphic work for Alex Lindsay, round corners.
I like rounded corners. I like rounded corners. I feel like sharp. Here's the thing: I feel like this is an example. We were just talking about the PBS, and that's what this question was about. And I jumped and found some of the graphics, and they are typically like when I see square boxes over with no border over top of a background, I just feel like, okay, well, you know how to use a DBE on your switcher. Like, I don't feel like there's any design there. This is And he does not look
It's
happy there.
designed with restraint, Alex. That's what it's called.
Yeah, but look at this. It's just
Clean.
I mean, when I see just like literally no border here next to her and all this stuff, this just feels like we decided not to use any. We've decided we're past graphics. It's post graphics. We don't need to use how few lines can we use, and so which is funny because I actually oftentimes prefer. I think that the News Hour itself is one of the best news outlets among all of them. I mean, I don't have a really high opinion about all of them, but the let's see if I can have hold on, let me see.
It's a postmodern graphics package.
It really is, and maybe that's what we're seeing is people are kind of it's not it's
ultimately what it comes down to is it really doesn't matter what you do. Half the audience is going to hate it.
I don't know. I think this
Always.
one might be half will dislike it, and the other half won't.
At least
notice. Half
will hate it.
I know. I think that sometimes you have a situation where it's. I'm trying to find it. It's hard to find graphics in. I usually download these, anyway, it's a long story. But like this is just like you're just like a border would be nice. You don't have to round it, but you got to act like I meant to put this image.
Can you
here.
undo that and export a PNG of that green border you just sent? I'd like to keep that for my collection.
Exactly.
I'm working on a job today. I need a green border.
Yeah,
I'd like to use that one. Not one like it, but that one.
I just feel like looking like you didn't just use what was built in the switcher is a nice add to it. And so I feel like ABC needs to update PBS. This looks like I am just using the switcher, and I've decided that I can't use anything that I can't do in my past my switcher. So
and that may, in actuality,
it might be what they decided.
They may do common denominator that any of the affiliates can replicate.
Courtney, you wanted to come back in?
Yeah, I was just going to comment on on Chris's comment on the lower third on the Superbowl. I think my theory is they went to that with the bold letters and the bold names in the center because a lot of people are viewing these on their phones these days. Superbowl maybe not, but their graphics package. If you're picking up your phone, you want to see what the score is. You want to see what quarter you're in. Who's got the ball, that kind of stuff. You can just glance at your phone and see it and then go on.
Smart observation, Courtney.
Not understanding much about football, I was at least a quarter into it before I realized the Sunshine Band was not going to come out and sing a song. I didn't understand what the KC meant.
KC.
Shake your booty. Let's go to the next question.
Here's one from Douglas Carmichael. Has anyone ever tried Mistral's answer to ChatGPT and Claude, Le Chat?
Alex Lindsay, have you visited the Cant?
Here's the challenge for many of us, and the challenge for any explosion of new technology, whether it was oil or railroads or telephones or whatever, is once people get embedded, it's really hard to pull them out, pull their roots out. And I think that the problem is that a lot of us have found that I'm doing my my images in Midjourney. I'm doing my general chat in ChatGPT. I'm experimenting with programming in Claude. I haven't figured out. I'm doing Runway and a couple other ones for video. So the video is still kind of like, I don't know what I like best. But the other ones are kind of part of what I have working now. It's kind of part of the tool set. And this is why this is one of the reasons that I think Elon Musk is pushing so hard against against OpenAI, is because OpenAI is kind of there now, and I think Elon Musk wants to be there now, and so I think that he's got some serious problems with that. But I think that this is what LeChat and many others are going to have trouble with. Is I think that most of them are now playing for being bought. They're not going to playing to try to go head to head, or they're going to take over this area. They're going to get absorbed by the ones that are starting to get Anthropic and I think OpenAI and a couple others are starting to get to a point where they're like the Google and the Facebook of those kinds of things. They're probably not. Those aren't going to go away unless our government does something dramatic. So I think they're kind of embedded at this point.
And Ryan Thomason in the chat says Mistral is pretty good with code. So that's for those of you who are looking for that aspect. By the way, don't forget we're taking your questions all through the show. And you can ask questions, chat about the questions, and vote on them in Mukana. That's our Q&A system. You can go to officehours.global/join, and we'll send you an email within a day or two. And once you've done that, you can get into the system and then ask, vote on, and even chat about the questions with the Discord community that kind of runs in parallel to the show every day. That's officehours.global/join. Let's go to our next question.
Next one's from Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas. You can buy a breaking news graphic from Shutterstock, or you can use AI to make your own. Has AI caught up with Shutterstock and made it possible to get something just as good for free?
Ronnie Hofsaway.
Yeah, I've never kind of thought of it like that. We tend to use either for simple solutions the graphics that are embedded inside the graphic engine itself. If we're going to make something more customizable, that the client wants this or that, we have designers that do that for us. But buying something that is kind of a kit from another designer is something I've never done actually, except for web pages and other stuff. And looking to the graphics that, for instance, is in Superbowl the other day. You might as well just do it yourself and using Microsoft Paint or something, because that was really, really simple. I'm not saying it's easy to do, but you don't need a lot of advanced templates for that.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, construction paper with rounded end scissors, make really good for constructing this kind of stuff. These breaking news, they're a dime a dozen. These are all royalty-free ones, I think, that are here on Shutterstock, and they tend to all look almost the same. So you'll see them in the local news will not pay to have their graphics department create something. So they will take something like this and customize it. As to whether AI is caught up with it, accurate text rendering is one of the hardest things for AI to get in the text to video genre. Veo 2 is making pretty good inroads. Flux as a still generator, generative AI, does pretty good with text, but it still messes it up a lot of times. It becomes unreadable, or it has too many letters in it, or the letters are backwards, or weird stuff comes in. So you have to do a lot of trial and error, I think, with AI to create it. And the animation, can look good in the AI, but, a good animated in After Effects lower third or breaking news logo is going to probably look better right now. Of course, it will improve because they have all this royalty-free that they can train the AI on, all these royalty-free breaking news logos to train it. So.
And for those of you who have never worked with graphic designers and stuff like that, we use Shutterstock a ton. We've had a commercial account and large credit balances for decades because the designers that I work with tend to get ideas by going through that incredibly huge and wide thing. And I think since they merged with Getty, they're even bigger in terms of the number of images you can source for inspiration. But as Alex has often said, I tend to think that people who have worked with designers, they think differently than the rest of us. They notice things differently than the rest of us. And as I've sat through dozens upon dozens of meetings with them, they have a cohesive look at, what do I need to make different than our competition to set us apart? But how do I use design language and my training in art and the rest of that through the course of all the time I've studied this to be both unique but comfortable for the people viewing it. And that means you have to know who's going to likely be viewing it. And that has all the, on big campaigns, there's researchers who go through all this stuff and do creative briefs and things like that. So you get a cohesive back-end process where all of your media materials start looking cohesive so that your brand is easy to recognize by your consumers. And it's a long, involved process. Shutterstock has always had a place in that for the operations I've been a part of, or a service like Shutterstock, but it's very complicated. And yes, AI can do these things and do a good knockoff of them, but the difficulty for me has always been getting a range of products that all look the same using generative as opposed to that's something that a designer is totally schooled in doing. I'm going to make your letterhead look similar to your on-screen branding, which looks similar to your social media content, because everything was designed to work together. So that's just my 2 cents about it. Alex, you wanted to weigh in?
Yeah, I use AI not so much to produce content, but to get inspired by it. So I might produce, I got an idea, I want to think about a logo, or I want to think about like how this might look, and produce hundreds or even thousands of images, kind of the way I would do a vision board in the past. In the old days, I would have cut magazines out and put them up on a wall and looked at the things I liked or looked at the things that I felt were like this. And then I'm going to come up with whatever I'm going to come up with. But I'm not going to expect the AI to give me the final version of what I'm doing. So I think that I have done that recently with the logo, but generally I don't do that. And I think that the other one to look at is Leonardo.ai, because it has settings for 2D graphics and 3D graphics. And again, it hasn't produced anything that I would use as a final output, but it produces some interesting things that are thought-provoking.
And one of our graphics gurus in our community, Alex 40 Goldner, says in the chat, the graphics need to reflect an editorial plan. Being like news is not a distinctive plan.
Come on,
Yeah.
Alex, plan.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to our next question.
Here's one from the QR code. Anahuahai Black Bear Marshall is asking, no audio anywhere. 3rd week for silence on the audio stream. People who listened only to the show are said to be the biggest number live audience here. How are these people supposed to connect to the show? What missing piece in tech is needed to overcome this gap?
Alex Lindsay,
I'm
you
going
want
to see if I can do this.
This gap.
Alex Lindsay,
I'm going to see if I can do this. So it's working for me. Like, I don't know what I was trying to get the whole, I was
real
hoping
time.
I thought it was going to be I thought it was going to be enough latency for the whole question to come back through again. But it didn't. So this is our radio app. We've had that out there. You can, I don't know where the link is for it. I'm assuming you have it. If you don't, then, ping someone on Discord, to do that. I think we've distributed it. It's not distributed, but we have a radio app that does provide that stream. So I'm not sure. Not sure what's missing.
We're getting a lot of support for that in the chat too. A lot of people are waiting and going, "Audio's fine for me. I have audio here. I used it yesterday."
Yep.
And if you're on an iPhone, the app has been working fine.
Yep.
Next question.
Next one's from Douglas Carmichael. Courtney, what is special about the K2X00 synth engine versus today's synths?
Courtney, weigh in.
Well, 30 years ago, when Kurzweil came up with the VAST, VAST, it's an acronym, stands for Variable Architecture Synthesis Technology, I think. It used a variety, back then, synthesizers were mostly analog, and they were just starting to get into digital synthesis with sampled waveforms, playing sampled loops as the sounds, Kurzweil was famous for his piano samples, and having great electronic pianos where he had full samples for the entire keyboard, very carefully chosen recorded samples. But the K2000, the K series, the 2000, the 2500, now the 2700 is out, used a combination of both FM synthesis, which is an analog type of synthesis, and digital sample synthesis, and combining them together so that you have infinite amount of versatility in creating sounds with a thing, because you can mix the analog FM synthesis and give you that rich bass like the Moog low-end bass sounds, along with the sampled piano sounds or string sounds, or some of the harder stuff to generate, to mimic with FM synthesis you can get with sample synthesis. So it mixes those two things together to come out with a combination of both. And so that was what was the innovation that Kurzweil brought to the world in that 2000 series. And it's evolved over the years, but that VAST engine is still kind of the same. And even the newer ones, they've just added, I think, some better samplers, better sample generation and repetition and constructing the loops. And you can go in on all those synthesizers and actually, mess with the loops and the repeat points and of everything, and the attack, decay, sustain of each individual sample. So it's fairly complex and offers you the ability to tweak it to your heart's content.
Next question.
Another one from the QR code. Mariella Shushamira in Wablo is asking, vMix calls isn't supported by Multicorder. We tried recording 5 ISOs and switched feed, but get frame drops and multiple files that we have to sew together in Premiere. Livemind NDI recorder does the same. Any other options or workarounds to record 5 calls?
Ronnie Hassoil in Norway is going to start us off. Ronnie?
I wouldn't actually use vMix calls at all. Know that vMix is supporting Zoom. I would just tap into a Zoom meeting, have all the participants going into each and their own window, and do separate recordings for that. If you are still wanting to use vMix calls, maybe sending out the feeds as NDI and use an NDI recorder would probably solve this. As you said yourself, the multicorder is not made for recording vMix calls. And I have had the same problem on vMix calls, regardless of using multicorder or not.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, we use Zoom ISO for this. So we use Zoom ISO. You could join a Zoom meeting with on a Mac with something like Mimo Live, and it should record. I've not recorded 5, but I have recorded many over both with the internal tools that Mimo Live has, as well as the Siphon tools that will send it Mimo Live and then record there, and just set all the inputs and set what you want to record, and it just records out. It depends on your drive speed and your CPU power to do that. The way that we do it when it matters is that we are using Zoom ISO out to a SDI output. So we have a card, and that card can be in a Sonnet box or inside of our computer or a series of cards. You can output up to 16 1080p streams from a Mac Mini M1. I'd be careful. I do 8 streams out of the Mac Mini M1 to keep it at below 60% capacity CPU usage, and then you put those out as baseband into an actual recorder, and it will record all of those feeds, and very, very, very reliably. Anything less than that is less reliable. So you're gonna, there all of these other tools. Anytime you're using software to move a bunch of feeds and then trying to record it with other pieces of software, you're dealing with a whole lot of CPUs that are that have to work in unison. It's not that it doesn't work. It's not that it can't work. It's just that it's more tweaky than just outputting hardware and recording.
Next question.
Anahuahai Black Bear Marshall in Owyhee, 2010 was said to industry as uncompressed SDI HDoIP. With VMD now using their own compressed flavor 2010, is this another misstep in making their products less compatible to industry standards used by other gear, like they did in the past with 3G, etc.?
Ronnie's going to come back in and try to clear this up a little bit. Ronnie?
Well, my thought of that is that Blackmagic is actually making products that people can afford on the semi-pro to lower level, and cater to those that doesn't have huge budgets, which for the 2110 make you purchase new switches, etc. So if we go into a classic production today and see how many 3G converters that actually are out there, it's enormous amount of units. So I'm not thinking of this as being a limitation or a more kind of vendor locked-in type of product. I think of it as a version of the 2110, which is actually a part of the spec. So I think Blackmagic is just maneuvering into the market by using the spec to their own benefits, and creating a type of protocol that can be used by many and is compressed and is more usable within, could we say, cheaper type of networks. And I think it would work well. I have a lot of 2110 from Blackmagic on my wish list, so I'm just waiting for the right project and add that to our inventory as well.
Alex Lindsay.
I wouldn't say that the 3G was a misstep. So as someone who was part of that process, the 3G, what that's being referred to as is SDIA versus SDIB. SMPTE was not getting moving fast enough to provide to finalize the standard for SDIA. Blackmagic decided to go to SDIB, which was their own version of it, so that they could get going. They were able to then make it backwards compatible with SDIA as needed, but it allowed them to get out of the gate early. They did the same thing with 4K, although the standard was up a little bit faster. Blackmagic is well within the standard that a 2110 sets. I talked to someone who's on the standards committee last NAB. Blackmagic is not breaking any rules with how they're doing it. They also have made this open source, like they've documented it. It's open source. Anybody can use it, but they're not. They are completely conforming to the 21. The 2110 standard was uncompressed, but there are plenty of places inside 2110 that allow for compression to do this. Most likely, at the pace that everything's going, most likely Blackmagic could be the largest developer of 2110 hardware in the next 2 years, to the point where it may not matter what anyone else thinks about 2110 if Blackmagic keeps going down the path, because they've made it incredibly inexpensive to execute 2110, which has been very, very difficult for everyone else. And the compression has been a problem. Not everyone needs uncompressed 4K to do what they're doing. I have some 2110 stuff showing up from Blackmagic soon, maybe the next couple of days. Hopefully I'll show it to you. We're testing the 3 in, 3 out. So we're not using the switcher in between right now, but we're just testing. You can get these pieces of hardware that are 3 SDI in, 3 SDI out, and send 3 SDIs back and forth between two locations through the network. And we're going to be testing some of those. But I think that they're finally pushing. I mean, 2110 would probably, without Blackmagic, would probably just disappear into the world of NDI. And I think that, because I think NDI would just is taking over, has taken over a lot of this, because it's more flexible. It's a smaller bandwidth. It's more usable for a lot of average folks. And 2110 is, you see big trucks getting built with it, but you don't see it rolling out because of that uncompressed requirement. So I think Blackmagic's doing a big use, helping the industry move to something that's more flexible, and so that 2110 really becomes a standard across those things. Now, it is going to be more complicated than SDI. One thing about SDI that's nice is generally when you plug it in, it works, but it's also very limited in what it does.
And there's a robust conversation on the chat about this. But if you don't want to go through the Mukana system and you just want to get a quick question in, let me recommend that you use askofficehours.global. You can type that into any web browser, or you can use the QR code that I just popped up on the screen that's down there if you want to do that. But askofficehours.global, just typed into any web browser, will get you to that part of the Q&A system. Your question will go right immediately into the back-end crew. They will be able to look at it, make sure, we like to have them simple and clean, well-formed questions, not too terribly long, and one question only per submission. But if you follow those basic rules, you have a chance to get it on the show as quick as possible, and sometimes that's the fastest way to get the information out of our system. So that's askofficehours.global.
And it's a good conversation. We should bring it over. So Mickey thinks that, well, I don't know if I can say what they're doing, Blackmagic's doing in the pool. So, but Mickey's not happy with it. Jonas says Black 2110 is compatible. The only place they use BP10 is to sending high frame rate 4K over 10G connection. Below that, BMD is 2110-20. But even using BP10, they are following the 2110-22 spec. So there's a lot in this generated a lot of chat. If you see some of these folks like Jonas and others on Friday on our show, you should ask a 2110 question again, and I'm sure we'll have a robust conversation.
Absolutely. And if you are in the Mukana chat, it's an amazing source of expertise.
And by the way, if you haven't seen it, our emails have changed. So what happens now is that this week is the first week that they came out, so we'll tell you about them almost every day, is that the new emails don't go out at 5:45 Pacific Standard Time. They go out at 6:50 Pacific Standard Time. So it's a little bit later, but instead of telling you what the subject is, it tells you who's in it. Who's in the show, like who are the panelists in the show. So you'll see pictures of all the panelists and who's in there, so you can take a look at who you might want to ask questions for right before the show actually begins. And it's taking that, it's kind of cool. This has been some great work on the back end teams have put this together. It's looking literally at who raised their hands and who's in the panel and dynamically grabbing that and filling it into the email right before it goes out. So it's pretty slick.
When we tell you the back-end people are amazing on this show and that we are constantly innovating, Alice has built a platform here that is constantly revolutionizing itself and trying to add as much as possible.
You see that. I didn't do any of it, by the way. I just complained about it. So I was like, I don't like this. These pictures are too big. That's all I did. That's my only input to this, was just being grumbly and saying what it is. And I'm so happy with what they put together. And and I just want to underline, it took months. Like this was not something that was done over, like, hey, let's do this. There was months of talking about it, figuring out how to do it. We had to get grab pictures of everybody from past appearances, figuring out how we're going to make this all work, get all the automation working. And this is all months of volunteer work. And I just want to underline how great a job everybody did working on this. So anyway, that's the email. If you see it coming out, know that there was many boffins. So really great work by the team.
Squeaky wheel.
All of this generated by the question. So thank you.
I would
for
say
your
grindy
question.
wheel. Like, not even a squeaky wheel.
Squeaky. All right. Well, squeaky wheels sometimes bring your attention to something that needs fixing. So in that respect, it's annoying but great. Let's go to the next question.
Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas. I thought the Superbowl ads were pretty insipid this year, considering they cost, $8 million per minute? What did you think of this year's Superbowl ads from a media pro's perspective?
Courtney, start us off.
I think one of my favorite ones was the Instacart, where they brought together all the the logos and mascots of all the different brands coming up on this house. There's the guy on the horse from the Old Spice. You got the Kool-Aid guy. This is the foot of the Jolly Green Giant. There's Mr. Clean. There's the Cheetos Cheetah. There's, of course, the Ever Ready Energizers. I don't know was it Nathan's hot dogs? These little dachshund type of hot dogs that are scampering around. I thought that was pretty interesting, and it was good to see all those logos coming in from the past. The scariest one was, I don't know if I can bring it up, is the Seal commercial with all the Seal, the singer.
The artist's face on top of an actual seal.
So it's a seal with the head of Seal singing a version of one of his hit songs, which was really disturbing.
Alex Lindsay, your thoughts?
I think that some of my favorites for this year were ones that were just really well written. So the David Beckham one with Matt Damon was really funny. It was really good. If you see the David Beckham one, is pretty funny. The Barry, is it Barry Kogan? I can't. Kogan? I don't know how to say his last name, but the Squarespace one where he's going through the Irish countryside throwing laptops at people, so like a paper boy, and the Dunkin' Donut ones with the are always pretty funny. I mean, there were some. I think that there weren't a lot of them that had visual effects that I would say, oh, this is great. Oh, the Instacart one was pretty fun, but I didn't have a lot of them jump out like this is the most amazing thing. But I think some of them, as always, were written really well. I will say, I don't know, I feel like the Budweiser draft horses is starting. I think they're running out of ideas.
The Clydesdales.
It's hard to do that for
long
40
in the
years.
hoof.
Yeah.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, I found this disturbing picture of the seal.
So scary.
That was very disturbing, and I didn't think the Ben Affleck Dung Kings for Dunkin' Donuts went over well. It was maybe a little too Boston-y. That was just I didn't like it.
I thought that's I like that one. I like all of the
I'm not an East
ones
Coaster, so
fun,
I don't get half of those jokes.
Question for me is always, is anything going to break through and become that memorable ad that's talked about 20 years later, like the Apple infamous woman with throwing the hammer through the big screen? I mean, that really changed a lot of advertising thinking.
I think the hard part is you need a singular. I mean, that was Ridley Scott that was hired to do it and given and allowed to do whatever he's going to do. I think that if you went to Christopher Nolan and said, make me an ad and I'll pay you X amount of dollars. I think if somebody asked Christopher Nolan to build a 30-second ad,
I'll give you all the money.
I'll give you all the money If Apple just said, here's all the money. Although Christopher Nolan, he doesn't even have a cell phone, so it'd be hard to get a hold of him to even do the ad.
I'm not sure.
But if someone went to them and said, I'll give you all the money, do some kind of epic ad, it'd probably be pretty good. Like it would it'd give the Nolan brothers some time and $50 million, and they'll bring you back something that is memorable. It might even be up with 1984, but that was because they took a director with a clear vision and gave him control and let him just do whatever he was going to do. And they almost got, I think the board almost killed it. Like they didn't want to play it. They were very upset by the whole thing. And so that's why those kind of ads don't happen, is because it's too hard to get approval. Like it's just, in the grand scheme of things, without a Steve Jobs and without a Ridley Scott, the 1984 ad doesn't happen.
Yeah, and it also has to be at a moment in time. It's like me watching the first Alien movie. I don't think anything's ever scared me as much, but after that, everybody who tried to do that kind of jump scare afterwards, it didn't have the same impact that the first time you see something that is truly different. It makes a different kind of impression. So who knows? Anyway, they were expensive ads, plus that's just one ad, one 30-second insertion into the show. Some of those companies have media budgets in millions and millions, and so that has to work along with everything else they're doing. And so we'll see whether any of those companies have sales spikes or make impressions that they measure all the time, and feelings, psychographics and things like that, whether they last. Time will tell. Next question.
Karen Addis in Melbourne, Australia, asking through the QR code, is there a way to turn off the new Apple Sonoma reactions permanently? I don't want to go into every app that uses a camera and turn off.
This question has come up again and again. Alex Lindsay is going to help you.
Not that we know of. I think they really want you to use it. I do feel like I like Apple. I like a lot of Apple products. I do feel like the challenge Apple has over the next couple of years is, number one, is not to force us to use things that we don't want to use, that they think are a good idea and want to just get it out there. And number two is to say no more often to all the crazy ideas engineers. I feel like my phone becomes more Android-like every day. So like just there's too many weird swipes and things and whatever. Like you just want, I think Apple's starting to lose the you just want it to work thing, because I find my stuff is becoming less stable with more features that I don't want. So I think that that's the problem, that's the challenge that Apple has. But as far as we know, I don't know of any way to turn off the reactions. You have to go every time you get a new. It doesn't. You just have to remember that it's there. I do this when I go into a new thing that I haven't seen, just to see if it's going to do it. And then I go, oh right, I got to go up there. But I only use. Most 99% of my video calls are FaceTime, Meet, Teams, Zoom. So so once those were handled, I don't see other ones very often.
Yeah, we're stuck in the reality, too, that while we use our phones professionally for many types of things and do not want all that clutter, probably more teenagers who desperately want social media interactions use them than we ever do.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No.
I don't know.
I think they do. Some of them do, but this one built into our computers. I'm not sure. I don't know who wanted these. One
of the things I'm going to keep my eyes on is invites, the thing that Apple just rolled out the other day, because right now it looks like a birthday party invite kind of thing, or maybe we're getting together with neighborhood friends. The question is, does that evolve and turn out to be another Apple category killer? Do they extend it into the areas that some of the professional invitations to meetings, online events, and whatever, do they go in that direction, or do they keep it fun and cute?
Well, I think that it probably doesn't have to go too far that direction, but the main thing is a lot of people were using Evite and a lot of other things for things that were not big professional whatevers. And I just want to have a bunch of people come over to a house. It was an easy place to do it, but you had to give away all your information, and and it was quirky, and you had to sign up for it and everything else. And for Apple users just to be able to just put it together, I did test it, and it's pretty cool. And the thing that the killer part of that app is the photos. So it builds a photo. It'll automatically build you a shared photo library that people can throw into during the event. And that is going to be something that teenagers use and other people use and weddings use and everything else. And you can include people that are not iPhone users. So you can include Android into the mix. And I think that you'll see lots and lots and lots and lots of weddings. use this, because that has been a central place to easily, with your phone, without having to think about it. I know people always say, well, you can just use Dropbox. Okay. You can't do that with a lot of people. Like a lot of new people. You can do it with people you use it all over and over again. And this is, so it's going to be something that you see in a lot of events. I think that I don't think this is going to be another Clips. I think this is going to be something that they run with. And by the way, I know people who use Journal and Clips, so I don't know if they're. But I think that they it could be a big deal. And when you saw the designer pop up, I think they spent like 5 years working on it. Like, it's not like Apple doesn't do things like that are just kind of thrown together.
Super Bowl day, I woke up at 4:45 in the morning. I usually wake up about that time, and I noticed it on my phone. And so I just thought, well, let me explore this a little bit. I invited my wife, who was going to watch the Super Bowl with me anyway. I sent her an invite, and it took me literally probably 4 or 5 minutes to put together a really nice, simple little invite. And everything worked. As Alex noted, I was able to use one of the phone pictures that I already had in there of our TV, add titles and the rest of that. So it was so frictionless that I actually got an invite out within a minute and a half to 3 minutes of actually seeing the app. And that's pretty powerful when you get something that works that well. Ronnie Hofsoy wants to get in on this. Ronnie?
Just to mention about the disabling these reactions permanently. There are some rumors, and if you look to the chat, there are a few concrete suggestions on how to do this. I've tried the terminal one that is not showing there, and I did not get that to work. But Jonas is saying that you can change the plist of each application that actually uses this functionality, like Zoom, etc. So you just have to find the correct parameter to disable that functionality if the application itself allows you to do that. So there are ways of doing this. I have tried a few of them and not been able to do that. So I will have a chat with Jonas afterwards.
Yeah, the chat even has links into GitHub and places like that, where I guess the whole communities are working on video reactions management. So it is a topic of heavy discussion right now. Let's go on to our next question.
Craig Kadoki in Toronto. Will we get to a point where the graphics overlays will be delivered separately from the video feed so they can be modified in the client for specific attributes such as size, location, on-screen, etc., maybe using HTML?
Alex Lundy, what do you think?
This can already be done, and people do it in feeds in the cloud and other places already. So if you're building something like an OBS or a vMix in the cloud, and you have a HTML5 system using something like SPX or Singular or other things like that, you can already do this, and people do it. What they do is typically do it the way that a broadcaster would do it, which is that they leave gaps open, and they can put in lower thirds, they can put in tickers, they can put in all kinds of things. Now, what has been the problem in the past is being able to deliver that at 60 frames a second. So a lot of times these online ones are more designed around branding. So your bug, that kind of thing that doesn't necessarily have to move at 60 frames a second. But for instance, the Videon encoders that we're about to start testing will do 60 frames a second. So you can have in the Videon encoder, as an example, you can have an HTML5 that we built with SPX or Singular or whatever, and it can be producing all those graphics for you downstream of your entire production. The reason people don't do that very often for most of the productions they matter is people want to look at it. They want to see what's actually going on. These are things that are happening in real time. But where this comes into use most often are things that are overall branding or tickers or things that are information that's not related to the show. And that's already happening downstream. And most broadcasters have this happening. Like, when you watch a NFL football game, part of the graphics are being generated locally and part of the graphics are being generated remotely, and most of what the show is all local. But when every time you go to a commercial break or you have other things going, it's going back to Bristol or whatever.
If you value what we do here, there are a few ways you can help. You can like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can volunteer at officehours.global/volunteer. And if you want to become a little more impactful directly, we do accept donations. We are a 501c3, so you can do that at officehours.global/donate. Regardless of which of those paths you take, we would love it if you can help the show succeed even more than it already does. So, next question.
Here's one from Lois Richter in Davis, California. I've heard that running your video through OBS, camera into OBS into Zoom, will cause a sync problem. Is that true? If so, what is the cheapest way to fix that? I have Audio Hijack and OBS.
Alex, what do you think?
So you can add latency inside of Audio Hijack. So you can just add a delay. So typically what's going to happen in OBS is that you're going to see a sync issue between the audio and the video, and typically the audio will be ahead of the video. If it's not, it gets harder to fix. The delaying video is more complicated than delaying audio. So generally, delaying, if you, in Audio Hijack, there is a delay node that you can add, and then it's just a matter of figuring out what that delay is. You can do it by eye, watching someone talk or watching yourself talk, and record it on Zoom. Like just record a Zoom and talk into it. If you really want to not spend a lot of money but figure it out, you can just do, we will do the simplest way to do it is just go like this. And what you're going to do is just once. It's not going to be as accurate as other things that you can do, but you can make that actually happen. It doesn't work that well. People do this thing where they clap over and over again and people slide it. And we do that at events mostly to make the team feel happy, but we don't use any of that information. So oftentimes what we do is we'll take a slate. If we're not using something like a Matchbox, we'll take a slate and just snap it once, grab those segments downstream, look at them in an NLE, just look at them in Final Cut or Resolve, figure out what how many milliseconds is different from where I see it and where I hear it, and then type that in. You can do that. There's a lot of other tools to do that, but those are some of the ones that you might want to think about. But to get the actual delay, all you should have to do is go into Audio Hijack and delay your audio.
Next question.
Alex 4D Gollner in London is asking, Prima Immersive, a new immersive video application service for Apple Vision Pro users in the U.S., was launched yesterday. They built their camera. What do you think? With a link.
Cool. Courtney has a thought, and so does Alex. Courtney?
Well, I'll let Alex address the camera because he's our big Vision Pro guy. But what I like is their homepage has this flying through the clouds, and as you move your mouse, you can move around within the 3D immersive aspect using HTML5 and there's now Alex can comment on the whether or not the immersive video is going to hang on or not. Alex?
This is Prima Immersive. This is I downloaded this app yesterday. It came out yesterday morning, and it was sent to me by a couple different people. Hey, you should check this out. So it is. So basically, what they've done is they've got they say a 16K image. I think it's 8K per eye, 90 frames a second. So this is much closer to the kind of content that we think the Blackmagic camera is going to be capable of producing. And again, Alex said 16K image, 90 frames immersive footage, but I think it's 8K per eye is there. They say HDR10 video without overheating is what Alex has put in the chat. The HDR wasn't as good as it could be. like as someone who does a lot of HDR, it was not as, it was kind of HLG-ish at best, as opposed to what I would consider, there's just a lot of clipping and things that I wouldn't normally think that were great. And Mickey pointed out it's 7200 by 7200 per eye, but it's a lot. It is single. The camera is single for the performances. And it is probably one of the best examples of what is coming with this new Blackmagic camera. This isn't using the new Blackmagic camera. They're doing something. They built something else. They might have built it based on Blackmagic hardware, but it's not the Blackmagic camera. It is pretty profound as far as how good it is. There's things I would have changed. I would have moved the camera down a foot and back 3 feet. I would have, there's an interview where she's looking off camera. I'm like, why are you doing that? I was like, I don't understand. There is, the audio is obviously mixed by someone who knows how to do Atmos, but it lacks any kind of environmental record. So it doesn't feel as much like you're there, or that you probably could have mixed in a little bit. But they probably just didn't have the tools to do that. I feel like if they had moved back just a little bit and moved down a little bit and then not squeezed the artists quite so close together, it would have been a little better, but very, very comfortable to watch. And I think a very compelling case for why a lot of this content's going to be great for music artists and great experiences to watch. I think that this is the first step of it, but it's now in one day has gone from I didn't know it existed to if I show someone at my headset, this is going to be one of those 3 or 4 things watch to download the whole thing. Don't watch just the trailer. The trailer's good, but it's worth it. It's worth $4. It's worth a latte to watch 16 minutes of the future.
Next question.
Paul Val, who's in Austin, Texas. An Office Hours panelist uploaded a silent video to YouTube that shows the first few seconds of the BBC's international news program that available in the short-lived Quibi app with a link.
Ronnie Hofsoy, did you decode this and figure out what's happening?
I think that the question moved really quickly. Hold on.
Let me check out the other bus here and see.
It just disappeared.
It disappeared. Well, maybe. Let's go on to the next question.
So I don't know what happened. It's just like whoop, it's gone. It's not even in the answer. It's just gone. So I don't know what happened there.
I mean, I brought up the video if you want to take a look. It shows basically the way that they Quibi formatted it for your phone and the interface versus the main broadcast on the right there. So,
is this an automated repurposer from regular internet to?
Yes, that's what they did.
Phone OS.
So you can see the difference in the graphics and how they're handled on the phone app versus the standard broadcast. So it reformats an HTML5 with the graphics overlays, a separate web-based feed for the phones. So.
Oh, nice. It was a phone a question from Paul Wallace, and it's back in the queue now. So Alex also raised his hand.
That's
Alex?
That's it.
Oh, no, right. We've covered it. Okay. Thank you for the question. Let's go on to our next one.
From the QR code, Ana Wahai Black Bear Marshall in Hawaii, using the Zoom Room product in the cloud for a multi-purpose room. Can't find the settings/switch for the original sound, etc., either in the controller or on the back end. Am I missing something somewhere?
Ronnie Hofsoy.
No, you're not missing anything. It's supposed to be like that. The only settings that you can control in the Zoom Room is under the microphone icon. So if you go in there, you will see that there are a lot of fewer options than you have in your vanilla client on your desktop. And that's how it's supposed to be. So if you are choosing to use Zoom Room's processing, you can have echo cancellation active and you can have noise suppression active. But if you, in the cloud, have something else feeding the audio into it that does this externally, you can safely disable one or several of these functions. But you will not have the same functionality as you have in your vanilla client.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, Mickey and Jonas both say go to meeting settings under Zoom Room setting and search for allow to enable high fidelity music mode in meeting and make sure that your UI is in English. And David Brady says this is the way.
With 2 arrows pointing up to make sure that we knew what he was talking about.
And Mickey said that you have to enable it while in the meeting as well as using the controller.
Okay, so and technical staff, all the people who make office hours run every single day, incredible technical minds distributed all over the planet who form this community and are doing all sorts of research in the back end, try to make this a better show every single day. We appreciate your efforts incredibly. Clock traversal today. If you were to try to go to the people who answer these questions and ask them in person, you would have had to travel 38,000 miles. That's 61,000 kilometers, 302 million bananas for scale. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching.
Some people said that it froze, but maybe I wasn't able to get there in time. But right at the very end.
Oh.
That we somehow froze.
Yeah, the radio app was still going.
there's some kind of
Henry
divot
Ramos in
there.
the chat said YouTube and Meccano was spinning wheel and skipped ahead. So I guess we had some little stormy things happen out there.
Yeah, there was definitely a couple minutes ago. There was definitely some kind of thump,
A
but
glitch in the stream.
There was a
Glitch in the system.
disturbance in the
we had one
Disturbance in the force.
force.
We had one where we were supposed to go live for National Geographic, and it suddenly nothing was working, and all of the East Coast had gone down for Facebook, and it turned out somebody cut one fiber cable in 1 yard. It was like
Some backhoe operator.
It created like a cascading failure that just took out like huge parts of the network. Like it just was a perfect timing or whatever. But when it all came, I was like, what